Awesome. Yes, to showcase your skills. Why else is your resume important?
Is it like to get an interview?
To get your interview, like first and foremost, that's like going to be that first step. A couple of things to know as you are working on your resumes, get that interview representation of yourself, right? It's creating that very first impression, highlighting that experience, showcasing those skills, but also most importantly, it's like your resume is a living document. I will tell you that for me personally, I have various versions of my resume. I have my full resume that's 4 pages long. So that's like including every single experience, right? It's a living document. And then I have resumes that are 1 to 2 pages long, depending on the job that I apply to. So I take out information that's not needed and only keep what's absolutely needed that's going to make me the most qualified candidate. Make sense? But that full resume, those 4 pages, that's my master copy for life, right? So like that's the one that I will continue to add on all of my experiences, because that's what's going to lead me to be able to make edits and copies of for the future. So like I said, for the majority of you, there's going to be one resume style that you're going to follow, and for you it's going to be chronological. There is 3 ones that we're going to talk about today, but for the majority of you, because this is going to be your either internships or first full-time job, is going to be chronological. And basically that means is that you put things in chronological order, right? So it's a standard resume format. Traditional job seekers, the majority of you in this room are traditional job seekers. You're going from education, so academia, to the field. Your entry level, looking to go into the same industry as your major. And typically chronological resumes, as you can see from this example, is you're always going to present your education and experience. This one is a little bit weird because you could see that our education's here at the bottom. And I'm telling you to do the opposite. I want your education at the top, right? But if you notice, the reason why this is like this is because they graduated in May 2011. And their experience, their current experience, because they have so many more years of experience now, at some point you're going to reverse that. Like in my resume, my education's officially at the bottom. I'm still in chronological order, but my education's officially at the bottom. For you, you're going to have your education first and then your experience second. Y'all are working really hard for this piece of paper, so you need to showcase that, right? This is also going to be the most commonly used format for a resume. It's really easy to read very quickly and is most effective if the majority of your experience is related to that same opportunity. A functional resume, which some of you may have, is a non-standard format, right? So let's say that you have experience, but it's not in your field and you're really trying to get into this field, but you have a lot of what we call transferable skills, right? And people sometimes are like, well, what is that exactly? Transferable skills is things that you have done in your jobs, but you don't know what they're called in another field. So for example, I did a ton of recruiting in higher education, but that's not the terminology that I was using. And then when I realized, I was like, hey, you've been doing recruiting for X amount of years. And I was like, I've done process, I've done interviews, I've done everything. I just didn't know that that's what I should be calling it, because that's what corporate industry where I was searching for jobs calls it that. So it's literally the same thing. It's just different terminology, right? This is a really good place to start. For example, if somebody's looking for a career change. So we're going to pause there because, again, your thing is going to be chronological, but I need you to know this. And your last one's going to be a combination resume. It's a hybrid format. eventually you're going to go this format because you're going to have a ton of industry experience, an advanced technical skill set. But until then, you know, you're going to stick to the first one. This, I would say, start thinking about this 10 years down the line. When you have all that experience, your resume is going to have to shift because you have to shift it to your skill set. You're not always going to be in that entry-level standard format. So you should know that eventually it's going to change. Any questions so far? Okay, love it. All right, so example resume sections. There's some things here that are absolutely a must and some things that I'm just like, they're not my favorite. Some people have them. They're not my favorite, and I encourage you against them, and I'll tell you why. Contact information. Please have your contact information. I cannot tell you that when I was recruiting before, I went to conferences and I got a couple of resumes without any contact information on them. No name, no email, no phone number. And I like got this resume from this person, and I was like, and she told me everything about herself, and it was such a great conversation. I was like, so how do I get a hold of you? She's like, oh, I was like, she said, my contact information's on there. I was like, it's not. She's like, oh my gosh, I just gave my resume to over 50 companies. What do I do? And I said, you're going to go print new copies and you're going to go to every company and re-give them your resume. And that's the best thing that you could do at that moment, right? But if I didn't tell her that in that moment, she wouldn't have known. So very important lesson there. Keep that contact information. Make sure that it's on there. Sometimes when we start working off a template, that's like the thing that we forget. You know, like if you start working on an academic paper, you just start typing right away and then you even forget to put your name on it. Thankfully, most of the things are online now, but if they were not, you probably would have forgotten. So something to keep in mind. Include a portfolio. So if you have a GitHub, your LinkedIn, make sure that you're updating those, and only include your GitHub if you actually update it. And then your LinkedIn, I do highly encourage you to actually update that, because in recruiting, recruiters are notorious to try to find you on LinkedIn, especially when there is something about the job description that may not be on your resume, but you may have it on your LinkedIn. We're like, oh, they do make qualifications. I was very notorious to do that. A lot of people on my team were notorious for doing that. So just be mindful that sometimes you'll forget to add things to your resume, but it may be somewhere else. And that's the one thing that will help you move to the next step in the process. Objective. I have a question mark there. Why do y'all think I have a question mark there?
I guess you don't need it as time goes on with your experience.
Your objective to me is to get a job, right? So your objective is, a lot of people like to I want to be a SWE at Apple or Google, whatever. And then the lapse happens where the attention to detail is missed and you submit the resume for Apple to Google because you forgot to change the name. Francis, I see you smiling because it's, that happens. We see it often, right? And so for me, your objective is to get a job. If you have space for an objective, I would suggest you change that into a summary of your qualifications instead, rather than because your objective is to get a job. Education, please have your education, right? GPA question mark. Same thing. Should your GPA be on your resume? What do y'all think?
It depends on the GPA average that
If
you
it's
have.
too low, let it go.
Yeah, I saw some responses on the chat right now. Thank you all for that. Yes. So yeah, I said 3.5 if it's high, only if it's high. If it's high, absolutely do not put your GPA on your resume unless it's a 3.5 and above. And there's two reasons I say that. Unfortunately, you are in an industry that looks at a specific things, and a lot of folks still place an emphasis on a number, not realizing that you may be working 2 jobs to get yourself to school, that even though you're learning, you may have a bad semester. A bad semester is a bad semester, right? That's what it is. So there is different circumstances that you may be going through in that semester that cause your GPA to drop. It's really easy for your GPA to drop. It's really hard for you to get it back up, right? And so maybe you had a bad semester for whatever reason, and that brought your GPA down, but because your GPA is, I don't know, like a 2.9 or a 2.0, you're not moving forward in the next step. Do not put your GPA on your resume unless it's absolutely requested by the company. If they request it, great. Put it on. Oh, fantastic question. I'm going to answer that. If it's requested, great, and it's high, then great. But even if it's not high and they request it, you should still apply, because some hiring managers will realize that it's just a number. Other hiring managers will be absolutely not. And that's just kind of like the reality of what you have to go through when it comes to your GPA. So it's something to be very mindful about. Relevant coursework. Please add your relevant coursework. Tip about relevant coursework also is a lot of your internships, for like example, for this summer 2024 open up in fall 2023, right? Yes. And you all started probably applying in the fall. Yep. Okay. So let's say that you need an AI class, but you're only going to take it in spring 2024 because it's not available in fall 2023. But it's a requirement for you to have AI as part of that position posting. So you'll do relevant coursework, and then you could do upcoming relevant coursework, and then put the semester and put, AI for example, and that should help you also meet qualifications for the job, because you may not have it during the moment of the interview, but you will have that qualification by the time that you start the internship. Make sense? Okay. Experience in projects, internships, personal projects, academic projects. If you were at the session yesterday on networking, we talked about the emphasis about personal projects and academic projects, specifically if you don't have experience. So just make sure that you do that. Extracurricular, professional societies, leadership, volunteer work. Add it if you have the space. Don't add it if you don't. And then, of course, your skills. And by skills, I'm talking about your technical skills, not your soft skills, right? So your soft skills, communication, leadership, all of that, I don't want it on your resume. I don't want to see that terminology. What I want to see is like your Java, your Swift, your JS, React, all of that stuff. That's what I want to see on your resume. Okay, highlighting your experience, y'all. Provide details to explain what you did during your internship or project. And there's an emphasis on here. Provide details to explain what you did, right? So a lot of times for projects, you work in groups and you talk about the group as a whole, but you should really be talking about what you did rather than the whole group. And remember that it should be bullet points, not sentences. Think about the details. How did you contribute? What was your outcome? What skills and tools did you use? Using action words, right? So those verbs, and quantify whenever possible. Include any specific accomplishments or recognitions that you might have received. Bullets, not sentences. Limit it to the most impactful details, and typically you're going to have 2 to 4 bullets per experience, especially if you have a lot of projects and internships. So I like to do the good, better, best method, right? So I'm going to show you the next slide. It's going to be a lot of text. So we're going to do it together, and you're going to see some of the differences. Sometimes when you don't know how to start your resume, you're just going to write it out. And that's my best advice. Just write it out, and then you can work on the good, better, best method. A good way to start is, I work with professional staff. That's what you did in your internship. Great. And you help, I help them with specifications and drawings for an engine. I was involved in performance testing of engines. Additionally, I was responsible for getting the conference room ready and attending weekly staff meetings. This is good for me to know what you did, but how do you make that better? Because remember, bullets, not sentences. If you go to a career fair, a recruiter's not going to be able to read that, right? They just don't have the time. A better, see how it's going to get better, but it's not best yet. You didn't work with professional staff, you worked with engineers. That already makes a difference. In developing specifications and drawings for an engine, you tested engines and recorded a range of measurements. That tells me a little bit more, but not enough. And you set up the conference room and attended weekly staff meetings. Sounds a little bit better, but it's still not the best. Action words, those verbs, collaborated with a team of 5 engineers, right? So remember, quantify whenever possible. Tell me the number of people. In developing specifications and drawings for a dynamic simulation model of an internal combustion engine. This tells me what you actually did and how that might relate to the roles that I'm looking for. Conducted durability and performance testing on 15. Again, quantify whenever possible. Prepare conference room, attended weekly staff meetings with 35 engineers and technicians to stay appraised of current projects, upcoming deadlines, and department updates. So much better on the last one than it does on the first 2. The second one you could make into bullet points, but the last one gives me the details that I actually need. Make sense? When should we make numbers words or actual numbers? Anything above 10 should be numbers. Anything below 10 should be words. And I'm still going to answer that major GPA question, but we're going to get to it at the end. So I did forget. How many of you have heard of the STAR technique when you interview? Great. How many of you have heard of using the TAR technique for your resumes? Right? A little bit different. Let's talk about the TAR method. Think about it as the STAR technique, but it also should help you write your bullet points for your resumes. Task, action, result. Same thing as the STAR. Academic Resource Center for UC Anytown, right? Deliver academic support for students encountering academic difficulty to aid in skills and study habits to achieve success in their undergraduate education. Tutor first and second year students in math using broad basic strategies and techniques to promote critical thinking and problem solving. So can I get a volunteer right now? Deja, is that you because your hand was already up? Maybe not. Can I get a volunteer to practice with us? Oh, Justin, you're so kind. Thank you, Justin. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Justin.
All right.
All right, so Justin, on the first bullet point, deliver academic support for students encountering academic difficulty to aid in skills and study habits to achieve success in their undergraduate education. Do you see the task, the action, or the result? What do you see in this bullet point?
I see the task and the action. I don't see a result though.
Talk to me more. Where's the task?
So delivering academic support for the students.
Okay, awesome.
Actually, I don't see the action. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. Anybody else see anything else? So we have task. Do we see anything else?
I can see result.
Okay, tell me. What do you see?
Design and implement. No, never mind.
All right. Luis?
Yeah, the result to achieve success in their undergraduate education.
Awesome. So we got the task and we got the result, right? Fantastic. Thank you. Let's do one more before we move on. Can I get another volunteer for bullet point 2? Joseph, go. Oh,
Um, Yeah, so I guess like for task, I'd say tutoring first and second year students.
mhm.
Um, the action would be using broad-based strategies and techniques to promote. And then I guess the result might be like to promote critical thinking and problem solving. But yeah.
Yeah, you got that one. All right. So I love that. We're gonna, because there's 4 examples and we're not gonna be able to do all of them, but first one, correct task, the deliver result is the skills and study habits to achieve success. The second one didn't really have a result, but it did have a task and an action, which are still necessary bullet points for you to showcase what you're doing. The third one did have a result, and so did the fourth one. So it's just something to remember, like this is a guide to help you figure out what your bullet points are, right? So task, what are you doing and what skills are you utilizing? The action, how are you doing it? And the result is what is the outcome, the result or impact based of your action. So just remember this piece, you're like, hey, I never thought about using basically this part that I already have to use for interviews to write my resume. So it's just a new skill tip for you to have in the future. Another question that we get asked a lot is, what if I don't have experience? How many of you don't have any experience? No internships? Yeah, and that's okay. Do you have projects? Do you have any projects, academic, personal projects that you could showcase on your resume? Academic projects, James, absolutely, those work. And here's why. Projects count, right? Course projects, personal projects, they are better than any other work experience if that experience is not relevant. So if you work as a tour guide on campus, for example, and you want to add that to your resume, that's great if you have the space. But if you have personal projects or academic projects that you could add to your resume instead, I would rather see that than your tour guide job. Remember that they demonstrate practical application of your technical skills. And as an added bonus, remember I said don't add things like good communicator, leadership, and all of that stuff to your resume, because I should be able to see that from what you already post on your resume. So projects can highlight additional skills and strengths, teamwork, creativity, initiative, all of that good stuff. Can you add your projects from YouTube channel if you don't have? Yes, absolutely you can. You just would have to like put them in resume format. Should percentages be included with, I think that goes back to the bullet points, correct? So if you have them and they have an impact, definitely add them. So I need all of your help. I gave you some tips. Now you're gonna help me get Clark hired. So this is Clark Kent's resume. What do we all think about Clark Kent's resume at this moment? And what advice do you have for Clark to make this a hireable resume?
For starters, his resume looks like mine right now. Um, You
It's a
can take the GPA off because that's below 3.5, but he could take the GPA off due to it's a 3.35.
Mhm.
On the relevant courses, it would be better if he give the name of the courses rather than just put the class digits on his, like CS 101 and CS 210. They probably don't know what he's talking about if they went to a different university or college.
Love that.
He has a spelling. I'll stop there. I'll let somebody else go.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. Anybody else? What other advice would you give to Clark? GPA, name of courses, what else? Go for it, Luis.
Yeah, I would say probably move the skill section to the top because I was told that, when applying, that's basically what recruiters look at first, what skills you have.
Good advice. What else would you change on here?
I would combine the work experience and extracurricular activities and just put like relevant experience because it just seems very like staggered the way he added it.
Oh, I like that too. Okay. A deal? Did I say that right?
Yeah, that was good. I think like adding more bullet points in the project, so like describing what it is, what the result was, and what he used.
Love it. Result and what was used. What else?
I think overall the outline of the resume can be changed. From looking at it, I just really don't know. My eye doesn't necessarily focus on anything because there are no utilization of like bolds and underlines to really section up the different sections in the resume. So I think that would help better making I kind of don't, my ADHD kind of messes up looking at it. I don't know where to focus on. So
It
yeah.
all just blends in. So the outline formatting of the resume, absolutely. Okay, what else like be critical about like the detail? What else do you see on this resume right now that you're like, that should probably
There's no period with the bullet points for the projects.
Mhm.
And I feel like it should be periods there, I guess.
Okay. Okay,
I
and
think,
we're gonna talk about that too. Periods,
I
what else?
think should have like dates for his projects and experiences. I mean, he does have it for experiences, but it's not like standardized like for education and extracurriculars like on the right side, but for experiences not.
Yeah, dates, good point. Include a LinkedIn profile and a GitHub. Yep. What else?
I think Clark should add more detail for maybe like his extracurriculars because he just like states member for ACM.
Mhm. Yep. There's one more thing that yes, Justin Greenwell, you got that detail right. There's one thing that none of you have mentioned, and I want you to look at it right now. Look at his dates for education. What would you change there?
Instead of
You should
Doesn't
just say
oh,
to graduate.
I think two people said it at the same time. Can we say it one more time?
Instead of present, would you put your expected graduation date?
Expected graduation there. Okay, absolutely. Is there anything on this resume that you're like, that doesn't need to be there because it's not as relevant?
The association of computer machinery, because that might not be directly related depending on what his goals.
Okay, that's a good one. When you built your resume, did anybody have to make a resume during high school?
No, so I get the STEAM high school tutor.
Yeah, because it may be relevant, but it's no longer relevant. If Clark started in school in 2020 and he's on a 4-year plan, we're assuming that Clark is going to be graduating this year. So that's no longer relevant. So that's a good one. Okay. So we gave Clark all of this feedback. And this is what the new resume looks like. Y'all ready? Okay. So somebody mentioned, let's start. I'm going to go off the list that you all gave me. So it's not necessarily in order of how we would want to do it, but that's the way that it's going to go just because that's where I took notes. First person said GPA. Remove that GPA. Clark went from a 3.35 GPA to a 3.9. What happened there?
are those his like major-oriented courses.
Yeah, so if you look at this one, this says major GPA, where if you look at this one, it's just GPA. This is your cumulative GPA, right? So you do have 2 GPAs. You're typically not going to get those 2 GPAs until your junior year. Your first 2 years, it's going to be that one because it's your GE courses, but your major GPA will definitely be different than your cumulative. If your major GPA is higher, go ahead and put it on if you want to. I still don't encourage you to put a GPA unless it's absolutely necessary, but this looks much better than that 3.35, right? So Clark is definitely doing really well in courses right now, so that's fantastic. Then the next person mentioned the name of the courses. So now we know what courses Clark is taking. What I love about this too is you said it right. The course number does not translate from university to university. So that means nothing to a recruiter, but this means more things to a recruiter, right? Knowing what the course name is called. Word of advice on this one too. Sometimes your course name at your university is different than the most common name. So just be very mindful of that. So like, for example, I don't know, maybe your intro to CS class is like, a lot of them have like 2 parts. So just be mindful, like maybe like the company's calling it computer science, something, I don't know. And if it's called something else at your university, it's okay to change it on your resume to match so they know that you actually meet that qualification. Okay, just so it's easier for the recruiter to follow. Skills to the top. Yeah, you could definitely put your skills to the top. I kept the skills here at the bottom. Something also that's different here is that we expanded on our skills. Here, we were really talking about languages versus here, we expanded. And this is something that a lot of folks miss, right? This is also includes software tools. You could also include different frameworks and whatnot. If you have those skills, add them because that may be the key to getting you to that ATS, right? So like, just be very mindful. It is okay to definitely do that. What I like about having either the skills at the very top or at the bottom, one, I always want your education. Honestly, I always want your education first. If you're gonna add your skills at the top, I would add them below relevant coursework. So they won't be the very first thing on your resume. Your education will still be first and then your relevant coursework, followed by your skills. But this also allows me to just go to the right at the bottom of the resume and just check things off if I'm a recruiter and I know what the job posting is looking for. The next thing that somebody said was combine experience. I love that somebody did say that because it's a really great way to put that, like relevant or whatnot. But we did remove the high school experience. So thanks for that tip. It was a little bit outdated. So just something to note. We added more bullet points, 3 bullet points for each section at least, Justin. But something that we also added that somebody did mention is tell me what languages and tools you utilize. So if you see here, this looks much different. This is super helpful. And I know a lot of people don't do this, but I highly recommend that you do something like this. Remember, you have to know your audience. The recruiter doesn't come from a technical background most of the time. But if you're helping them check things off after reviewing your resume, it's going to make your life so much easier. And there may be things that they may miss because they're not as clear and direct in front of them. Dates. Somebody said be consistent with dates. So we added dates. Fantastic. Love that. More in-depth details here. Love that as well. And then expected graduation date here. Also love that. So y'all are doing them. We did keep the ACM and the orientation leader piece. We just added more details. And something I want you to know, remember I said, I don't want you to tell me that you're a team player. I know this here because you collaborated with a team of 60 colleagues. You're a team player, right? You also take initiative. You can plan events. I know that you can actually present in front of people because you taught 45 hours plus of training, right? So it's things that you're not telling me that you're good at. It's things that you're already showcasing on your resume. Any questions? I'm looking at my folks on video. Any questions from anybody else? Does that make sense? It's pretty clear. All right. So now that we know this, we want to understand the position posting. So yeah, Justin, go for it.
Yeah, I had a question. Are we supposed to underline like certain words in a resume?
Not necessarily. If a lot of things are digital. So like if you're gonna link things, it's okay to link them. So that will automatically, do the italics and like the blue and the underline. If you really want to highlight something, like for example, here languages and tools utilize, I would go more the bolding and italics route. Keep it clean. All of that good stuff. But no, you don't necessarily need to underline anything. This resume here is half a page. This resume here is actually one full page. Another thing that I didn't
So
actually,
basically, you're saying too much white space is not good.
oh
That's
yeah,
what
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We want to make sure that your resume is at least one page. Something that we didn't actually talk about that I meant to bring up is this one only has 2 projects. This resume has 3 projects. We didn't notice that this one is from 2018. So for Clark is interviewing for a role where his last project is very relevant, right? To the job. I don't want you adding things on your resume unless you absolutely like know them backwards, forwards, sideways. You have to know all of your projects, specifically if you're going into an interview. Like if you're going to submit your resume, great. But if you get that call back, everything on your resume is fair game. And the minute that you say in an interview, I don't remember, that was a really long time ago, you're probably not going to do well. So if you put it on your resume, like the expectation here is that Clark actually knows exactly and remembers this project so well that they'll be able to present it during an interview and talk about it during an interview. That's the only reason why Clark was able to add that project to the resume. Should you add projects you did at your internship? Absolutely, without disclosing any details for any NDAs that you signed. Absolutely. All right, understanding your position postings. So we're looking at position postings. A lot of the time, you'll notice is that there will always be OMQs, which are objective minimum qualifications, and this will be for new grad full-time positions, for internship positions. You have to make sure that you address every OMQ that you have experience or exposure with on your resume. So a lot of the times, any new grad positions, the reason why I asked earlier, will not accept your resume if you have had 12 months or more of relevant experience. So remember, I graduated with a CS degree. I took a year and a half off and I worked as a SWE for 14 months. I will no longer qualify for this new grad roles, right? Even though I went back to school, I will no longer qualify. So just be very mindful at what you're looking at. This piece of like making sure that you address every qualification means that you may have to submit different resumes for different roles. Be very mindful and feel free to ask your recruiter, hey, I noticed that you have positions A, B, and C, and I'm very interested in, all 3 of them. Do I need to submit different resumes, or will the system only read one resume? because that's also another possibility, right? So let's say like maybe this position's very specialized in like you need Java and Python, and this position's like you need C and I don't know, C and C++. And then this one says this is you need, you know, HTML and SQL. And you can only submit one resume. You should be adding all of your skills to that resume. All of the projects that will qualify at least one of the qualifications for every single position. So basically what you're doing is quote unquote marrying your resume together as one. That way the ATS system reads it and is able to qualify you for all of the positions that they have. The part about objective minimum qualifications is it's really externally what you see, right? So let's look at this example. This one is from Meta. So you see right here, this is a software engineer intern co-op. You see the minimum qualifications, but then you have preferred qualifications, right? If you could see the preferred qualifications, that's great. A lot of companies will also have additional qualifications on the back end by hiring teams. It's not something that you see. It's only something that the recruiter knows about. So you may meet all the minimum qualifications. You may meet all the preferred qualifications. But if a team is looking for something that's not listed here as an additional, and let's say like Joseph, you have the objective, you have the minimum, and you have the additional, but Justin, you only have the minimum and the preferred. Justin, you're out, Joseph's in potentially for that interview, right? And it's just those things that you can't see on the back end that recruiters know about because every single team is different. So with 10,000 applications for one role and only, I don't know, maybe 250 candidates get callbacks, it may not be you per se, it may be the back end of the things that you can't see. So just be very mindful and don't get discouraged for that reason. But this one's really easy. You have to be enrolled full-time degree seeking program, right? You need to know, you have to have experience in coding, Java, Python, C++, Objective-C, and JavaScript. So like, it doesn't tell you how many, but I would say that as a intern co-op, you at least need 1 to 2 of these ones. 1 where you're very proficient on your own, and 2 that you could be proficient even if it's with a little bit of help. Okay, able to have work authorization, fantastic. Demonstrate software engineering experience from a previous internship, work experience, coding competitions, or publications. This coding competitions or work experience, your projects count. So just make sure that you know this, like projects definitely count on here. Intent to return to a degree program after the completion of their internship. So basically this, it says, yes, you could technically be a senior, but we want somebody that's going back to school, right? So like, just be mindful of that. And this is a 12-week program, so you could see that here. So just know like the things on your resume for this position posting should definitely be like your expected graduation year should be either December 2024, if this was a spring thing, right? Or a summer 2024. Showcase any projects. You should definitely have at least 3 or 2 of those programming languages on your resume, and have the ability to work, right? So that's the things that that you see, but there may be other qualifications. All right, the last thing, couple last things actually. Formatting your resume, keywords. So remember the things that I just mentioned to make sure that you're getting to that ATS. Simplify format. Make sure that it's a PDF file. You saw that template or that Clark Kent resume. It's very simple. It doesn't have a lot of, it doesn't have photos or tables or anything. None of that stuff will be read by the ATS. It will actually reject your resume because it will not be able to read it, to make sure that it's very simple. Your file type should always be PDF, not Word, It should be PDF, because if I open a Word file on my computer and you open it on your computer, the formatting will shift depending on the version of Word that I have. If I'm using a PC versus a Mac, all of that good stuff. So just something to be very mindful of. Always save it as a PDF. And then the last thing is things to not include in your resume. Don't include your picture. It's not needed. Don't list your age, your marital status, or any other demographic information. Always save it as a PDF, and do not submit references unless they're on a separate page. You're answering the question about references on the application, but it's not needed for you to include it on that the resume. Best title name for resumes: last name, first name, underscore, resume. Fantastic question. I appreciate that. Last name, first name, underscore. Yeah. All right, y'all. Other questions or concerns? Something that I didn't go over that you're like, hey, you didn't answer this. I had an anticipated graduation date of December 24, but I was able to get off the wait list for my classes, and so we'll be graduating in May. So Jonathan, you should still, oh, got it. Can you still be an intern the summer after graduation? Typically, no. It depends on the company. Internships are typically for those that are going to be returning to school. I will say some companies have exceptions to let students that have graduated to intern. But most of the time is, I am a junior I'm going to be a junior going into my senior year in the fall. My goal is to go into that internship and get that return offer as full-time, right? That conversion offer. So it just kind of depends. I know that some places will do it, but they're also like very similar to first year internships. They're very slim. So yeah. Major GPA. Yeah. So remember, like I said, if it's higher and you want to include it because it's required, include it. But always use the higher GPA. So if that means your cumulative is higher, then use your cumulative. Do you recommend delaying graduation until you land an internship? No, absolutely not. I recommend you continue working on projects, academic, personal projects, attend, professional development. So like conferences where you could do like hackathons or anything at your school that you could do that. Because your projects are just as good. The only difference between a project, whether it's personal or academic, versus an actual internship is, one is form of pay, two is them seeing you in action, how you work on a team, which are things that you could do if you're doing a project with a group. But if you get to the stage of like a recruiter interview, it's really about how you interview. And then if you get to the stage of a like hiring manager interview, it's your delivery. If you don't know how to answer those questions properly, you're not going to move forward. And the mistake that I see most of the time being made is that people talk about, when they're talking about their past experiences and projects, they're talking about a team of people that they work with, not the actual work that they did themselves. And that will be like, you gave me nothing. So then they overlook you and they move on, and you could be the best candidate. But if you didn't answer that properly, they won't know that you have the skills to be there. What if you just graduated, but all the relevant work experience was during at school, not professional? What should you apply to? Still your regular full-time roles, definitely. Like that Meta co-op, if that was a full-time, I would just say keep applying to those. Reformatting your resume, kind of like the one I showed you like this, will help. But it's about like making sure that your bullet points are strong and whatnot to get you to that next level. Had similar question yesterday, but if I have a sophomore credit standing, but I'm currently freshman, should I include it? Yeah. yeah, the thing with you, Justin, for example, is that like companies will make exceptions if you are an outstanding candidate. So like you could apply to you basically qualify for sophomore year as internships because you have some sophomore standing because it's about credit. It's not about your age, it's about credit. That's the difference. So technically you qualify for them. Because if they were to ask for your transcripts, you're a sophomore. So yeah, definitely apply. Do you think it's redundant to list the languages and dev tools used underneath each project and then also having the languages and dev tools is underneath the skill section, especially if we have one huge project that utilizes more than half of it? It's an excellent question. I think for me is if I'm interviewing you and we're talking about your experiences or past projects that are on your resume, I'm going to focus on the things that you use for that project. I'm not going to focus on the additional skills that you have because they're on your resume. Unless we tie that into the conversation somehow, I'm not going to trick you and like ask you a question that's not necessarily relevant to the purpose of the interview. So if you have the space to add them beneath each project, I would. But if you don't, then this is like one of those things where I would say like make the exception. Can you do a co-op after you graduate? Technically, co-ops are intended to be done while you're a student. So it just kind of depends again on it wouldn't be a co-op, it would just be an internship or so it just depends on the companies and their standards on what they are looking for and what they allow. All excellent questions. Any other questions?
Do you do one-on-one meeting?